Captain Jai-Ho Park stood at the wide window of the HSS Defiance Bridge, his dark eyes fixed on the distant stars. The massive warship hung silently in Earth's orbit, its sleek black hull reflecting the pale blue glow of the planet below. At 42 years old, Jai-Ho had spent more than half his life in space, but the sight of Earth still filled him with wonder. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Yuri Ba, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of the bridge. "Emergency transmission from Earth Defense Command." Jai-Ho turned away from the window, his boots making soft thuds against the metal floor as he walked to Yuri's station. The young officer's fingers flew across her holographic display, her face lit by its blue glow. "Put it through to the main screen," Jai-Ho ordered, his voice calm but firm. The massive screen at the front of the bridge flickered to life, showing the worried face of Defense Commander Min-Yoon. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept in days. "Captain Park," Min said, not bothering with formal greetings. "Our deep space sensors have detected something. Something big." Jai-Ho felt the attention of every crew member on the bridge shift toward the screen. "Define big, Commander." Min pressed a button off-screen, and a series of images appeared beside his face. They showed thousands of dark shapes moving through space like a swarm of angry bees. 1,000 ships, Captain. We've confirmed it's the Arkan Empire's main battle fleet." Min's voice grew heavier. "They're heading straight for Earth." A cold silence fell over the bridge. Everyone knew about the Arkans. In the past 50 years, they had conquered 12 solar systems. Their strategy was always the same: send in the 1,000-ship fleet, overwhelm the enemy with pure numbers, and demand surrender. "Time until they reach Earth?" Jai-Ho asked, his mind already racing through possibilities. 7 days at their current speed. Lieutenant Han-Bai Kim, the ship's science officer, spoke up from her station. "Commander, has Earth Defense started mobilizing our fleet?" Min's face grew even grimmer. "That's the problem. Half our fleet is tied up defending our colonies in the Centauri system. We have only 20 ships available." 20 against 1,000, Jai-Ho muttered. He walked back to the window, his reflection showing a face deep in thought. The Defiant was humanity's most advanced warship, but even with its cutting-edge technology, these odds seemed impossible. "The Council is meeting in 1 hour to discuss our options," Min continued. "Captain Park, we need you and your senior staff there. The Defiant might be our only chance." Jai-Ho nodded. "We'll be there, Commander." "Park out." As the screen went dark, Jai-Ho turned to face his crew. Fear showed on some faces, determination on others. They all knew what the Arkan Empire did to worlds that resisted them. "Yuri, call all senior staff to the conference room," he ordered. "Han-Bai, I want you to bring every piece of data we have on Arkan ships. Every battle record, every scan, everything." "Yes, Captain," both officers replied in unison. As the bridge crew rushed to their tasks, Jai-Ho looked once more at Earth below. His home, humanity's cradle. He thought about all the billions of people down there, most of them probably enjoying their day, not knowing that an alien armada was heading their way. 1,000 ships, he whispered to himself. The Arkans always relied on numbers, on overwhelming force. But in Jai-Ho's experience, bigger wasn't always better. Sometimes, the biggest giants had the biggest weaknesses. You just had to be smart enough to find them. His hand touched the cool metal wall of his ship. The Defiant was just one ship, yes, but it was a human ship. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was beating impossible odds. Jai-Ho straightened his uniform and headed for the conference room. They had 7 days to figure out how to stop the largest invasion fleet in known space. It wasn't much time, but it would have to be enough. The Earth Council chamber was filled with shouting voices. 50 council members argued across the round table, their faces red with anger and fear. On the huge screens around them, images of the approaching Arkan fleet played on repeat. Jai-Ho sat quietly between Han-Bai and Chief Engineer Ta Wan Li, watching the chaos unfold. They had been here for 2 hours, and still no real solutions. "We must surrender," shouted one councilman, pounding his fist on the table. "We've all seen what happened to planets that fought back." "Surrender." Another councilwoman stood up. "So they can take our resources and make us slaves." "Never." Defense Commander Min tried to restore order. "Please, we need real solutions. We have 7 days before. Then build more ships." Someone yelled. "We have shipyards. We can. It takes 3 months to build one warship." Taiwan spoke up, his voice cutting through the noise. "We don't have 3 months. We have 7 days." Silence fell over the room. Jeho looked at Hanbai, who had been unusually quiet. She was staring at her tablet, flicking through images of Arkan ships with intense focus. "Captain Park," Commander Min said, "you've been quiet. What's your opinion?" All eyes turned to Jeho. He stood up slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Building more ships isn't the answer. We need to think differently." "Different how?" someone asked. Jeho nodded to Hanbai. "Lieutenant Kim has been analyzing Arkan battle footage. Show them what you found." Hanbai stood and connected her tablet to the main display. The screens filled with technical diagrams of Arkan ships. "Look at their fleet formations," she said, pointing to the patterns. "The Arkans always attack in perfect, tight groups. Their ships fly so close together that they can share shield power. It's why they're so hard to defeat." "We know this already," a council member said impatiently. "Yes, but look here." Hanbai zoomed in on one ship's engine section. "Their shield systems have a flaw. When they link shields, they create tiny gaps, microseconds when the shields shift power. You can't hit these gaps with normal weapons. They're too small and quick." Jeho stepped forward. "But what if we could? What if we could hit those gaps with perfect timing?" Taiwan suddenly sat up straighter, his eyes wide. "The quantum drive," he whispered. "Exactly." Jeho turned to face the council. "The Defiance experimental quantum displacement drive doesn't just move through space. It can make precise jumps with perfect timing. Jumps that could exploit those shield gaps." The room grew quiet as understanding spread. Hanbai continued. "If we hit the right ship at the right moment, we could create a chain reaction. Their tight formation would work against them." "One ship?" Commander Min looked skeptical. "Against 1,000. The Defiant isn't just any ship," Taiwan added excitedly. "We could modify the quantum drive to make multiple jumps in seconds. Hit one ship, jump to the next before they can react. Their own massive fleet would become their weakness." "It's crazy," someone muttered. "It's brilliant," another countered. Jeho looked around the room. "The Arkans expect us to either surrender or try to match their numbers. They don't expect us to think differently, to use their strength against them." Commander Min stood up. "How long would these modifications take?" 4 days, Taiwan said. "Maybe 5, if we start now." "And the chances of success?" Jeho met the commander's eyes. "Better than trying to fight them ship to ship. Better than surrendering." The room fell silent again as everyone considered the options. They all knew the stakes. The future of Earth, the lives of billions. Finally, Commander Min nodded. "Do it. You have 5 days to modify the Defiant. If this doesn't work." "It will work," Jeho said firmly. He looked at his crew members. "Because it has to." As they left the council chamber, Hanbai caught up with Jeho. "Captain, even with the quantum drive, this will be incredibly dangerous. One wrong calculation." "Then we won't calculate wrong," Jeho said simply. He looked at his science officer and engineer. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start turning one ship into humanity's best hope." Above them, through the chamber's glass ceiling, the stars twinkled peacefully. Somewhere out there, 1,000 ships were coming. But now, Earth had a plan. Not a safe plan, not a normal plan, but a human plan. Sometimes, that was the best kind. The inside of the Defiant looked like a storm had hit it. Panels hung open everywhere. Tools floated in the zero-gravity sections, and the air smelled of hot metal and electrical burning. Chief Engineer Tawan Lee hadn't slept in 3 days, but he couldn't stop now. Not when they were so close. "Hand me the plasma torch," he called out to his team. Someone passed him the tool, and he dove back into the quantum drive's main housing. The massive engine took up 3 decks of the ship, its core glowing with a soft blue light. 4 decks above, weapons specialist Sun Mei-Kang was having her own problems. She sat surrounded by holographic displays, her fingers dancing across multiple keyboards as she programmed the new targeting systems. No, she muttered as another simulation failed. The computer showed her shot missing the Archon ship's shield gap by 0.03 seconds. Too slow. Still too slow. The door to her lab slid open, and Hanbai walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. "Thought you might need this," she said, placing 1 cup next to Sunmei. "Thanks." Sunmei took a long drink. "Please tell me you have good news about those shield calculations." Hanbai sat down and pulled up her own display. "Maybe. Look at this pattern I found." She showed a complex diagram of how the Archon shields shifted power. "There's a rhythm to it, like a heartbeat. If we time our jumps to that rhythm." In the ship's main engine room, Ta-1 finally emerged from the quantum drive housing, his face streaked with grease. "Start the test sequence," he ordered. His engineering team rushed to their stations. The quantum drive hummed to life, its blue glow growing brighter. "Power at 30%, someone called out. "More," Ta-1 said, watching the readings carefully. 50%, 70%. Warning lights started flashing. The ship shuddered slightly. "Sir, we're getting some strain on the hull." Ta-1 gritted his teeth. "Keep going. We need to know if it can handle the full jump sequence." The drive's hum turned into a high-pitched whine. 90%. Suddenly, sparks shot from one of the panels. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Ta-1 lunged for the controls, shutting everything down just as Captain Jaiho's voice came over the intercom. "Engineering, report. What's happening down there?" Ta-1 wiped sweat from his forehead. "Just a test, Captain. We're still working out some problems." Back in the weapons lab, Sun Mei and Hanbai had made a breakthrough. They sat staring at their screens, double-checking their calculations. "If this is right," Sun Mei said slowly, "we can hit their shield gaps with 99.9% accuracy." Hanbai nodded, "But only if the quantum drive can make the jumps exactly when we need them. 1 microsecond off. And then we won't be off," Sun Mei said firmly. She stood up, stretching her tired muscles. "Come on. Let's go help Ta-1 with that drive." The next day and a half passed in a blur of tests, adjustments, and more tests. The entire crew worked nonstop, knowing that with each passing hour, the Archon fleet drew closer. Finally, on the morning of the 5th day, Ta-1 called everyone to the main engine room. "Watch this," he said, starting up the quantum drive. This time, there were no alarms, no sparks. The drive hummed smoothly, its blue glow pulsing in a steady rhythm. "Full power," he announced proudly. "And the hull stress is within safe limits." Sun Mei checked her tablet. "Targeting systems are synced perfectly with the drive's jump timing. We can hit those shield gaps." Jaiho looked at his tired but determined crew. They had done what seemed impossible, turned one ship into a weapon that could potentially take down 1,000. But would it be enough? "Get some sleep," he ordered. "All of you. Tomorrow, we make our final preparations. The day after that." He didn't need to finish. They all knew. The day after that, they would either save Earth or die trying. As his crew filed out, Jaiho placed his hand on the quantum drive's housing, feeling its steady pulse. Like a heartbeat, he thought. The heartbeat of humanity's last, best hope. The alert sounded throughout the Defiant at exactly 600 hours. Red lights flashed in every corridor as Yuri's voice came over the ship's speakers. All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill. Repeat, all hands to battle stations. Jai-Ho was already on the bridge when his crew arrived. The main screen showed what they had all been dreading. The Arkan fleet had entered the solar system. 1,000 ships, their dark hulls blocking out the stars behind them. Message from Earth Defense Command. Yuri announced. Fleet Commander Da-hyun Choi is ready to begin negotiations. Jai-Ho nodded. Put him through. The screen split, showing both the approaching fleet and Commander Da-hyun's turned face. The fleet commander wore his formal uniform, medals gleaming on his chest. Captain Park, Da-hyun said. Are you prepared? As will ever be, Jai-Ho replied. Though I hope we won't need to fight. Da-hyun's expression was grim. Let me try talking first. The Arkans always offer terms before attacking. Maybe we can learn something useful. The screen changed again, and they found themselves looking at an Arkan admiral. The alien was tall and thin, with gray skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, the computer translated its clicking language into English. This is Admiral Kraz of the Arkan Empire, it said. We claim this system in the name of our emperor. Submit now, and your people will be treated fairly under Arkan rule. Commander Da-hyun stepped forward. This is Fleet Commander Choi of Earth. We wish to discuss peaceful alternatives to. The Arkan Admiral made a sharp clicking sound that might have been laughter. Alternatives. There are no alternatives. Submit or be destroyed. Its black eyes focused on something off-screen. Our sensors show you have only one ship in orbit. 1. Have you already accepted defeat? Jai-Ho watched carefully. The Admiral's dismissal of the Defiant was exactly what they had hoped for. The Arkans' greatest weakness was their pride, their absolute belief that numbers meant everything. That one ship is enough, Da-hyun said calmly. More clicking laughter. You humans are either very brave or very foolish, perhaps both. We have conquered 12 systems with this fleet. Thousands of ships tried to stop us. All failed. We're not like the others you've conquered, Jai-Ho said, speaking for the first time. The Admiral turned its dark eyes toward him. Ah, the captain of the lone ship speaks. Tell me, human, do you truly think you can stand against 1,000 ships? We don't think, Jai-Ho replied. We know. Han-Bai touched Jai-Ho's arm and whispered, Captain, they're moving their ships into attack formation, just like we predicted. On the screen, the Arkan Admiral's gray skin darkened, apparently a sign of anger. You have 1 hour to surrender. After that, we will destroy your ship and then turn our weapons on your planet. Choose wisely. The transmission cut off. Commander Da-hyun looked at Jai-Ho. Well, that went about as expected. Did you get what you needed? Jai-Ho turned to Han-Bai, who was studying her readings. Their shield synchronization patterns are exactly like our data showed, she said. They're not even trying to hide it. They don't think they need to. Because they believe one ship can't hurt them, Ta-1 added from his engineering station. The quantum drive is ready, Captain. All modifications are holding steady. Sun Mai spoke up from weapons control. Targeting systems are locked in. We can hit their shield gaps the moment you give the word. Jai-Ho looked at his crew, then at Commander Da-hyun on the screen. Sir, request permission to show the Arkans why they shouldn't underestimate humans. Da-hyun smiled for the first time. Permission granted, Captain. Give them hell. As the screen went dark, Jai-Ho watched the 1,000 ships move into their perfect, precise formation. Everything was happening exactly as they had planned. The Arkans were so convinced of their superiority that they couldn't see the trap they were walking into. All hands, Jai-Ho said over the ship's comm. This is the captain. In 1 hour, we either make history or become it. I'm betting on the first option. Stand ready. The Defiant hung alone in space, a single silver drop against the black ocean of stars. Facing it, 1,000 ships waited to attack. The game was about to begin. 45 minutes remained before the Archon's deadline. Inside the Defiance main conference room, Jeho stood before a holographic display of the enemy fleet. His senior crew sat around the table, watching as he explained their plan one final time. The Archon fleet is arranged in layers, like an onion, Jeho said, pointing to the formation. The hologram showed rings of ships, each protecting the ones behind it. They think this makes them stronger. Instead, it makes them vulnerable. Hanbai stepped forward, expanding the display to show one section of ships. Each ring shares shield power with the ones next to it. When they transfer power, tiny gaps appear for a fraction of a second. She pointed to the flickering spots in the simulation. Those gaps are our targets, Sunmai added. She pulled up her targeting data. I've mapped out a sequence of jumps. Each jump puts us exactly where we need to be to hit those gaps. Taiwan scratched his head. But won't they see us coming? Even with the quantum drive, we'll be visible between jumps. Jeho smiled. That's the clever part. He pressed a button, and the hologram showed a new pattern. We're not going to attack from the outside in. We're starting in the middle. The room went quiet as understanding dawned on their faces. Our first jump takes us right to the center of their fleet, Jeho continued. They'll be so surprised to see us there, they won't have time to react. Then we work our way out, using their own ships as cover. Yurei looked worried. Captain, how do we get to the center without them stopping us? Show them. Jeho nodded to Hanbai. Hanbai typed some commands, and a new simulation played. It showed the Defiant apparently retreating from the Archon fleet. They'll think we're running away, she explained. But really, we'll be building up power for one massive jump. The quantum drive can fold space just enough to let us slip past all their outer defenses. Like threading a needle, Sunmai said. A really big, really dangerous needle. Taiwan pulled up his engine diagnostics. The drive can handle it, but we'll only have enough power for one big jump like that. After that, we switched to smaller, faster jumps between ships. Jeho pointed to different spots in the hologram. These are our primary targets. They're command ships. Each one controls a section of the fleet. If we can take them out first, the rest will fall into chaos. Hanbai finished. Their tight formation will become a death trap. Ships will crash into each other trying to avoid us. And that's not all. Sunmai added with a grin. She showed a weapons diagram. Each time we hit a shield gap, our EMP burst will fry their systems. The disabled ships will drift into others, causing more crashes. They spent the next 20 minutes going over every detail. Each crew member had to know exactly what to do. There was no room for mistakes. Questions? Jeho asked finally. The room was silent for a moment. Then Yuri spoke up. Sir, what if this doesn't work? What's plan B? Jeho looked at each of his crew members in turn. There is no plan B. This works or Earth falls. But it will work. Want to know why? They waited for his answer. Because the Archons think size matters most. They believe in overwhelming force. But humans, he clenched his fist. Humans believe in finding ways around overwhelming force. We've done it throughout our history. When faced with bigger enemies, we get smarter, not bigger. He walked around the table, placing a hand on each crew member's shoulder. The Archons are about to learn that one smart human ship is more dangerous than 1,000 predictable ones. A beep from the computer interrupted them. 30 minutes left. Back to your stations. Jeho ordered. Review your parts of the plan. When the time comes, we hit them hard and fast. No hesitation, no mistakes. As his crew filed out, Jeho took one last look at the hologram. 1,000 enemy ships waited out there. But now they had a plan. A human plan. Sometimes that was all you needed. The hour was up. On the Defiance main screen, the Archon fleet filled the view like a wall of dark metal. Admiral Kraz's face appeared again, his black eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Your time has ended, Humans, the Admiral clicked. What is your answer? Jai-Ho stood from his captain's chair. We choose to fight. The Admiral's gray skin darkened. Then you choose death. All ships, attack pattern. Actually, Jai-Ho interrupted. We'll be leaving now. He nodded to Tawan. Get us out of here. The Defiant's engines flared to life, and the ship turned away from the Arkan fleet. As they started to move away, Jai-Ho heard the Admiral's clicking laughter. They run, just as all the others ran. Pursue them. Let's show them how futile. Jai-Ho cut off the transmission. Are they following? Yes, Captain. Han-Bai reported from her station. The entire fleet is moving to chase us. They're spreading out their formation slightly to cover more space. Perfect. Jai-Ho allowed himself a small smile. Status of the quantum drive. Taiwan's fingers flew across his controls. Power building. 30%. 40. 50. The ship shuddered slightly as the Arkan fleet opened fire. Their shots passed through the space where the Defiant had been moments before. They're trying to herd us towards Saturn, Yuri called out. Their ships are moving to cut off our escape routes. Let them think they're succeeding, Jai-Ho ordered. Sunmai, is the targeting sequence ready? Locked and loaded, Captain. First 10 targets are marked. The command ships won't know what hit them. The quantum drive's hum grew louder. 70%, Taiwan announced. 80, 90. Warning lights flashed across his console. The ship's frame groaned under the strain. Hull stress increasing. Someone shouted. We're reaching maximum tolerance. Hold it together, Jai-Ho said firmly. Just a few more seconds. On the screen, they could see the Arkan ships spreading out in a huge net, trying to trap them. Their formation was perfect, exactly as planned. Each ship exactly where they wanted it to be. Power at maximum. Taiwan shouted, ready for the jump. Jai-Ho gripped his chair's armrests. This was it. Everything rode on the next few seconds. All hands, he called over the ship's comm. Brace for quantum jump. This is going to be rough. He took one last look at the enemy fleet. They thought they had the Defiant trapped. They thought they were about to witness another easy victory. They were wrong. Now, Jai-Ho ordered. The quantum drive screamed to life. The view on the screen twisted, stretched, and then darkness. Complete darkness. Did it work? Someone whispered. The main screen came back online, and gasps filled the bridge. They were now in the middle of the Arkan fleet, surrounded on all sides by enemy ships, right in the heart of their formation. For a precious few seconds, nothing happened. The Arkan ships didn't fire, didn't move. They were too shocked by the Defiant's impossible appearance in their midst. Target locked. Sunmai called out, her voice steady. First command ship in range. Do it, Jai-Ho ordered. The Defiant's new weapons powered up, aimed at a microscopic gap in the nearest command ship's shields, a gap that would only exist for a fraction of a second. Sunmai's finger pressed the trigger. A blast of focused electromagnetic energy shot out, slipping through the shield gap like a needle through fabric. It hit the command ship systems exactly as planned. The massive vessel's lights flickered and died. It began to drift, its controls fried by the EMP burst. First target down. Sunmai shouted, moving to second target. Now the Arkans were reacting. Alarms blared throughout their fleet. Ships began to turn, trying to bring their weapons to bear on the lone human vessel in their midst. But the Defiant was already moving, its quantum drive ready for the next jump. The real battle was about to begin. Chaos erupted in the heart of the Arkan fleet. The Defiant moved like a ghost between the massive enemy ships, appearing and disappearing in flashes of blue light. Each time it reappeared, another command ship lost power and began to drift. Third command ship down. Sunmai called out. Her fingers danced across the targeting controls. Moving to fourth target. The quantum drive hummed as they jumped again, barely avoiding a blast from an Arkan cruiser. They reappeared behind another command ship, and Sunma's shot found its mark perfectly. "They're panicking," Yuri reported, listening to the Arkan communications. "Their ships are trying to spread out, but they're hitting each other." Jaiho watched as their plan unfolded. The Arkans' tight formation, once their greatest strength, was becoming a deadly trap. Disabled command ships drifted into other vessels. Ships trying to dodge crashes bumped into their neighbors. The perfect order was breaking down into confusion. "Captain," Hanbai shouted suddenly. "5 ships trying to surround us." "Ta-1, emergency jump pattern 3. The Defiant vanished just as the enemy ships opened fire. Their shots hit each other instead, destroying 2 Arkan vessels in massive explosions. "Status of the quantum drive?" Jaiho asked as they reappeared. Tai-1 checked his readings. "Holding steady at 70%, Captain. She's performing better than we hoped." On the main screen, they could see Admiral Kraz's command ship trying to restore order. The massive vessel sat in the center of the chaos, surrounded by its escort ships. "Sir," Sunmai said with a grin, "I have a perfect shot at the Admiral's shield gap." "Take it." The Defiant's weapons fired. The EMP burst slipped through the microscopic gap in the Admiral's shields, and the giant ship's lights went dark. "Direct hit," Sunmai cheered. But their victory was short-lived. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Multiple ships locking weapons," Hanbai shouted. "They're adapting to our pattern." Jaiho gripped his chair as the ship shook from near misses. "New pattern. Switch to sequence beta." The Defiant jumped again, but this time the quantum drive made a worrying sound. "Drive power dropping," Tai-1 reported, "down to 50%. They had disabled 6 command ships, but there were still 4 more to go. And now the Arkans were learning, trying to predict where they would appear next. "Captain," Yuri called out. "Message from Admiral Kraz. Audio only." The Admiral's clicking voice filled the bridge, filled with rage. "You think you're clever, humans. We still have hundreds of ships. You cannot win." Jaiho looked at his crew. They were tired, but determination shone in their eyes. He pressed the comm button. "You still don't understand, Admiral. We already have won. Look at your fleet." The main screen showed the full view of the battlefield. Where once there had been perfect order, now there was mayhem. Disabled ships floated everywhere. Working ships crashed into dead ones. The complex formation had collapsed into random groups trying to protect themselves. "Your greatest strength," Jaiho continued, "was that your ships worked together perfectly. But now they're just getting in each other's way." A massive explosion lit up space as 2 more Arkan ships collided. "Quantum drive back to 60%. Tai-1 reported. "We can keep going." Jaiho nodded to Sunmai. "Target the next command ship. Let's finish this." The Defiant danced through space, striking again and again. Each disabled command ship caused more chaos. Each jump made the Arkans more desperate. Their shots became wild, hitting their own ships as often as they hit empty space. "Last command ship targeted," Sunmai announced finally. "Taking the shot. Direct hit." The bridge crew cheered as the final command ship went dark. Without their commanders, the remaining Arkan ships fell into complete disorder. Some tried to retreat, crashing into others in their panic. Some kept firing blindly, destroying their own allies. The mighty 1,000-ship fleet was destroying itself. "Message from Earth Defense Command," Yuri said, smiling. "They say, 'Well done, Defiant. Well done.'" Jaiho watched the chaos they had created with 1 ship and smart thinking. "Send them our reply," he said. "Humans, 1. Arkans, 0. Sarah opened the door and saw a man standing there. He was tall with dark hair and wore a long black coat. In his hand, he held a small wooden box. "Hello, Sarah," the man said. "I am Mr. Blackwell. May I come in? I have something very important to show you." Sarah was surprised. She did not know this man, but he seemed to know her. She was curious about what was in the box. so she let him come inside her house. Mr. Blackwell sat down on the couch in the living room. He placed the wooden box on the coffee table. Sarah sat down next to him. "This box holds the answer to all your problems," Mr. Blackwell said. "If you open it, your life will change forever. Everything you ever wanted will come true." Sarah looked at the box. It was just a plain wooden box. It did not look special. She wondered how it could change her life. Was this some kind of trick? "Go ahead, Sarah. Open it," Mr. Blackwell said with a smile. "Don't be afraid. Just lift the lid and see what's inside. I promise you won't regret it." Sarah reached out her hand to the box. Her fingers touched the smooth wood. She was about to lift the lid when suddenly, "Continue writing here to complete part 8 with a total of around 780 words, following the guidelines provided."